Just wait a moment. All right, people are filtering in. It's just taking a second. All right, well, let's get started because no need to delay getting to why we're here. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another PNP Live. My name is Bashan. I'm part of the event staff for Politics and Prose. Before we continue on to our event, just a couple of quick items I wanted to mention. The first being that at any time during this event, you'll be able to go to the chat section and you'll be able to find a link, which will take you directly to the Politics and Prose website. There it is, where you can purchase a copy of My Beautiful Black Hair. We, of course, highly encourage you to do so, and we thank you for any patronage as that continues to help us bring you these live events. Also, if you'd like to ask a question of either one of our featured authors today, we ask for you to place it in the Q&A box just to help us facilitate the question and answer period, keep everything kind of organized. My Beautiful Black Hair is a book about Black women embracing their natural hair. 101 Black women share their stories of learning to love their natural hair and the immense power in that self-love. St Clair Detrick-Jules has a BA from Brown University in French and Francophone studies. She has been featured on NPR's Strange Fruit, BuzzFeed News, The Washington Post, and Everyday Black History. Excuse me, Afro Appreciation. Her documentary, DACAmented, has received awards at Immigration Film Fest, Baltimore International Black Film Festival, Ogden City Latino Film Festival, and Cornell University's Centrally Isolated Film Festival. Ms. Detrick-Jules will be in conversation with Ms. Markette Sheppard, an Emmy Award winning journalist and children's book author. Her best-selling debut book, What is Light?, inspired children to discover the light within through everyday surroundings. Ms. Sheppard is also founder of The Glow Brands, LLC, a media company aimed at illuminating perspectives around the world. Without any further ado, ladies, the floor is yours.
Well, thank you, Bashan. St. Clair, I am so excited to be here with you tonight as a fellow author and as the 102nd Black woman who has embraced my natural hair. I received this delightful copy of your book in the mail. Tell me about your inspiration for wanting to write this book.
Thank you. Yeah, and thank you for joining me in conversation today. So my inspiration behind the book is my little sister, Chloe, who when she was just 4 years old, came home from school crying because her classmates had bullied her into hating her afro. She has this really beautiful afro, and her classmates were bullying her about it. They were calling her hair names, and she decided that she hated her hair and she didn't want to go to school because she was so ashamed of it. And as an older sister, that really broke my heart, especially from such a young age, at just 4 years old. And so I decided that I wanted to do something to counteract that narrative that Black hair is not beautiful that had already been ingrained in my sister. And so I decided that if I could show my sister that there's such a huge community of Black women embracing their natural hair who look just like my sister, she would see her own beauty reflected in them. And so that's the story behind my book.
What a beautiful love letter to your sister. And I think there's a picture of you and your sister in the book. Yes, I mean, it's gorgeous. On the beach. Wow, look at that.
Yeah.
I love that. When I speak to other Black women, everyone has a hair story that involves some type of strained experience when it comes to race relations. Tell me about some of the women in the book who you feature. You also photographed the women in the book and what their evolution was between being tied to maybe straight hair and then embracing their natural hair.
Yeah, so every woman's story is so different, but there are also at the same time so many common threads between these stories. And as you said, right, the vast majority of Black women, at least in this book, went through a phase of not liking their natural hair and just wanting their hair to be straight. But for all different reasons, the women in this book decided to go natural. You know, a few of them had always been natural, and still went through that phase of not liking their natural hair, but never actually got a relaxer. But most of the women in this book did have a relaxer at some point. And they went natural for all different reasons. One woman in the book says it was just because the relaxer was making her hair fall out, and she was going to go bald if she kept doing the relaxer. So she decided to stop. And then there are other women who saw their natural hair as a symbol of their pride in being a Black woman. And so they went natural for that reason. So there's all these different reasons, right? Why the women in the book go natural. There was this one woman who said that she used to be ashamed of her natural hair. And when she told her mom that, her mom actually decided to go natural to show her daughter what that kind of self-love looks like. And so there's just all these different reasons why the women have embraced their natural hair. But the beautiful thing is that now they're all at a place of deep self-love.
I love that. And I shared with you when we first met, my mother had a perm and her hair fell out. And before I was born, she swore that if she ever had daughters, she would never perm their hair. And so to this day, I have never had a perm, but I had a really stressful job, which caused my hair to fall out due to stress. And that's when I felt like I was pushed into wearing natural hair. And now I know how to style. It wasn't until my late 30s that I realized I can style my natural hair without applying any heat, without blow drying it. I can twist it wet. I can play with it. I still straighten it like today, but I know I have options. And that was so freeing to me. It was a journey of self-discovery. For people who read your book, what do you think they're going to take away? What type of discoveries and new thinking are they going to have?
Well, I hope that one thing people take away from it, especially Black women, is sort of just what you were saying, how versatile Black hair is. Because a lot of times I think Black girls like my sister don't understand just the number of things they can do with their hair, right? Like they can do twists, they can do braids, they can do Bantu knots, she can lock her hair, right? Like there's so many things that you can do with Black hair because it's so versatile. And so I would love for, you know, people to go through the book and be inspired by the different styles and different, you know, cuts, different lengths of hair. And then I also hope that this book is an affirmation for, of course, for all Black women and girls, you know, because we're so often taught that we are not enough the way that we are. And especially when it comes to our hair, we're taught from such a young age, before we can even verbalize what we're feeling, we're taught that there's something wrong with our hair and with our skin color and like facial features and all that. And so I hope that this book acts as a counter narrative and an affirmation of love to every Black woman who's ever felt like she's not enough in her body. And then I hope that for everybody, you know, regardless of background, I hope it brings them a sense of joy and courage and strength, because really that's what I think the women in this book represent, you know, by doing the big chop, by going against societal, you know, Eurocentric beauty standards and deciding to embrace their own beauty. I think that there's just a lot of power there. And I hope that that spreads to everyone who picks up the book.
It's so freeing. And to see other women in here talk about their freedom stories, I think is liberating for me, because now I know, okay, when I go to the beach, I don't have to have straight hair and I'm okay. And I know how to work with my hair. And for a long time in my corporate job, after my hair started falling out, I just started wearing my hair natural. And I went through this phase of like, you know, there's many closets that people can come out of. And I came out of my natural hair closet are you going to judge me? You know, there was this like meekness. And then once I saw, you know what, it looks good. It shapes my face better. It's healthier. It's bouncier because I'm not frying it, you know, every week like I used to. I felt a weight lifted off of my shoulders. And I don't think you can have storytelling in the African-American female community without talking about hair. What's your opinion on that?
Yeah, I completely agree. I think it's such a big part of our lives from childhood. I mean, even what you were saying, thinking about going to the beach and realizing, oh, it's okay if my hair isn't straight at the beach, So many of the women in this book talked about how limited they felt when they thought their hair had to be straight. Like there was this one girl who grew up in a majority white area, and she said she felt like she could never wear hats, like she couldn't really go to the pool, like if it was raining, she couldn't go outside. And there were just so many moments of joy in life that she missed out on because she was worried about her hair. And so on the flip side, I think our hair is also really liberating. It's a form of community. It bonds us together. And so I could not agree more that, as Black women, we can't really fully talk about our stories without talking about our hair stories.
Absolutely. And we have a comment in the chat right now. Someone says, I agree. This book is a celebration of joy, freedom, self-love, and liberation. Found it empowering and inspirational. Tell me about how you found 101 women who were willing to come and be photographed and talk about something. For me, it's deeply personal, my hair story. And I can well up in tears depending on what story I'm telling you about my hair.
Yeah. And there definitely were a few moments of tears throughout the interview process. And I started out by reaching out to my friends, my former classmates from high school and college, one girl from my elementary school who I reached back out to. And then my mom also teaches at an HBCU at UDC here in DC. And so she recruited some of her students. And so I started with people who I knew or had direct connections to. And then I actually used, social media. There's a lot of problems with it, but one of the plus sides, I think, is the community that we can form. And so I looked into the natural hair community on social media, and I actually found a lot of women that way who surprisingly were like, yes, I will be a part of this book. I'll help you help your sister, and you can photograph me, you can interview me. And I too was really blown away by how intimate some of these interviews were and how deep people were willing to go into their natural hair journeys, talking about moments that felt very vulnerable. And I think that that's also a testament to Black sisterhood, Black strength, and also this idea that we don't really, as Black women, we're so often silenced and we're not often given a platform to talk about our stories. So I think that when we do share our stories, I know at least when I was in these spaces and sharing these spaces with these women, I felt like there was a lot of healing there.
I think you're absolutely right. As Black women, you're asked, hi, how are you? As a very high, superficial, level interaction.
Mm-hmm.
But no one really asks, no, how are you? Is everything okay? And that African proverb, how are the children? No one asks that. And the fact that this is stemming from wanting to create self-confidence and self-love in every part of the being of your younger sister is a platform that so many other people aren't stepping into. Can you share all of the stories are extremely touching, but can you just share one story that stands out to you? And when people get the book and you say, go to this page, make sure you check this out. This is not one you want to miss.
Yeah, I would say, let's see.
And I'll go to that page too.
Okay.
I love her hair color.
If you go to page, where is it? 67. Oh yeah.
You like this? I just like the mural behind her. But let's go to 67 first, and then I want to talk about some of the locations you shot at.
Okay, perfect. Yeah. So 67 is Asha. Yeah. Okay.
Tell us about Asha.
Yeah. So Di said that was her. Yeah. the photo that you held up before.
She's here. Hi.
Yeah.
I love that. And please, if you have any questions for St. Clair, pop them into the chat. I'm going to be asking them a little later in the conversation. I love that someone photographed it in the audience.
Yeah, me too. Thanks for coming.
And Asha means hope, doesn't it? I love that.
Oh, I'm not actually sure. I
believe so.
I think that that would make sense given who she is as a person. So in her story, there was so much that, I mean, our interview was so long, some of it had to be cut, but the part that made it into the book, you know, one of the things she was talking about was how her hair connected her to her parents, including her father who passed away. But her father, when, you know, when she was a kid, he would always take her to get her hair done, and they would have like these father-daughter dates together, just getting their natural hair done. And he was a big activist in the Black community as well. And so this was a point of bonding for them. And when he passed, he had chemo, he was getting chemotherapy right before, but she said that his hair never like thinned out. He never lost any hair. It just kept getting thicker and thicker. And then for his funeral, the woman who had always done their hair together for their father-daughter dates, she actually did his coils for the funeral. And so I just thought that that was such a beautiful story, and just shows how deep and intimate Black hair is for us, how it really is communal, you know. And her mom also helped her a lot, always sort of emphasizing the beauty of all of her Afrocentric features and of her kinky hair. And I just thought that that was a really beautiful story.
Wow. So her father had cancer,
Mhm.
and the chemotherapy couldn't break his Black hair.
Yes, it could not.
So we are strong, we are
Yeah.
resilient, and I'm sure his spirit is with her and throughout the pages of this book. We have some more comments coming in, which I just really want this to be interactive. Martha Cutt says, congratulations on the book, St. Clair. Such fun seeing you.
Thank
Again,
you.
Politics and Prose is dropping the link to where you can buy the book directly. This is a book that was shot in DC by a local author. Can you talk about some of the locations? DC is known for its beautiful Black imagery and murals and our landmarks like no other. So tell me about some of the places you went and sourced for inspiration.
Yeah, I mean, there were, while I was in the process of taking photos. Yeah, that's actually my neighborhood. Yeah, so when I was in the process of taking photos, it was kind of funny because everywhere I went, even when I wasn't working on the book, I was constantly like writing down street names, writing down intersections, like this place could be cool, this place could be cool. Yeah, so there were a lot of different places around DC. So where Di was photographed, that was at Howard University, obviously amazing HBCU. There was the African American History Museum. I knew that I wanted to include that in there. And I think that the woman's pose in that photo was also really powerful and showed a lot of strength. There's, for those of you who are familiar with like the cliff in Georgetown.
No, I'm not familiar with it. Where's that?
It's in Georgetown. It's hidden a little bit, but this was really fun. There's a lot of graffiti there, and so there's always like new graffiti popping up, and I felt like that really matched Ebony's personality, just very vibrant.
So are you a native Washingtonian?
I am, yeah,
See,
born and
that's how
raised.
you know those places. I love that.
Yeah. Yeah. And then I did take photos in New York too. So we went to like the Apollo Theater, a couple places in Harlem. Yeah.
Love it. Now, let's talk a little bit about good hair and what they might call bad hair and the tension that we have. Take out, colonization and Eurocentric racism, inequality. And within our own community, we have a struggle, between, just like Spike Lee, and the Spike Lee good and bad hair, there is a divide. Did that come up in your interviews with the women featured in the book?
Yeah, definitely. Even within the natural hair movement, I think that there are some Black women with tighter curl patterns that are sort of, they're not put front and center as they should be. And so I think that oftentimes, even within our own community, like you were saying, there are ideas of what curl patterns are good and what curl patterns are bad, right? And so looser curls are oftentimes seen as more beautiful. And I think that that's a ridiculous idea. It makes sense given our Eurocentric beauty standards that people would believe that, right? Because the looser the curls, the closer to whiteness, the tighter the curls, the closer to blackness. But I really think that we need to do away with this whole idea of good hair and bad hair, because we all have good hair. We all have beautiful hair. And that's especially actually why I wanted to do this book for my sister. Part of why I wanted to do it for her, because here's a photo of her. So
She's
out
so
of the,
beautiful.
thank you.
So
Out of the
happy.
4 of us siblings, yeah, she has the tightest curl pattern. And so I figured, okay, her school is majority white, her city's majority white where she lives. And even in her family, she doesn't really see people with her curl pattern, at least not her like direct family. And so I wanted to show her that tighter curls are beautiful as well. I think that, yeah, that's really important.
Well, Joe Cerie says, you are such a wonderful big sister. When one woman is liberated from Eurocentric straitjacket of beauty, we are all simultaneously liberated a little bit as well. When one woman feels joy and power in this way, I think it makes us collectively strong. We're breaking the chain. I think one woman at a time, we are totally breaking the chain. And then Lorraine says, exactly my point. Hair is hair, period. I think bad hair is no hair, because when my hair started falling out, I was like, I'm gonna hold on to it however it grows out of my head.
Yeah, and that's interesting too, actually, because, well, I mean, and that's not necessarily, I don't know how much that ties into like black women in in particular, but one of the women in the book, or a couple of them, had gotten their hair cut really short, and so they talked about sort of breaking those like sexist ideas of what it means to be beautiful as a woman, and this idea that you need long hair to be beautiful too.
And that's another stereotype, because when I see African women in Africa, nobody has long hair, but yet the continent has thrived for a millennia and more. You know what I mean? It's a thriving continent of people without long hair. So that's another thing that's rooted, I think, in Eurocentric ways. And sexism. It's so funny you mentioned that, St. Clair. When my hair did go natural, I had 2 Black colleagues, men, who came up to me and said, "You're gonna wear your hair like that on TV? Oh, you're wearing your hair like that?" It was Black men trying to put me back into my hair closet, I call it. And I was like, no, I'm out of the hair closet. No, if I straighten this hair, it's gonna fall out. Now that was a couple of years ago, and I've been straightening and that kind of stuff. But I'll straighten once a month and then go natural. We just finished with August, the most humid month in DC, and so what it did for me was it gave options, and then it opened my eyes to, this idea of suppression and oppression in our society is so strong, and it permeates every aspect of life, that even without the presence of someone of European descent, people in the Black community will still try to keep those standards of beauty. Have you found that to be true?
Yeah, definitely. And I think that that's really heartbreaking that we've internalized so much of these racist beauty standards and other racist ideas, but especially when it comes to beauty standards. And so some of the women in the book talked about being put down even by their own family members. Sometimes there was this one woman who said her father stopped talking to her for a bit after she wore her hair natural. There was another woman who wanted to go natural, I think when she was in high school, and her mom forcibly placed relaxer on her head and said, no, you have to keep wearing this relaxer. And it's not, I mean, especially when it's coming from a family member, I don't even think it's always malicious. I think it's just that they think this is what's best for my kids. Straight hair is best. Another woman said that she's Afro-Dominican. She said that her grandmother still asks her, oh, so when you go to your next job interview, like you're going to straighten your hair, right? To be professional. And so even within our community, we have work to do to liberate ourselves from these ideals.
Absolutely. I have a really good Bangladeshi friend with long hair like you. And so in her community as well, she told me, she was told when you go on a job interview, you straighten your hair. And it's just like, what is the problem? Okay, Lorraine is saying the problem just may be legacies of colonialism. Yes, Catherine is in the chat room saying, this is such an important and lovely book. St. Clair got this done during a global pandemic. What did you learn about Black men and their hair? Are there special issues as well?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question. And a few people have asked me if I thought about including Black men in this book as well. There were a couple Black mothers of sons who said, well, what about my son? And I think that that's a really important issue that definitely needs to be talked about. And I mean, my father used to have dreadlocks for several years, and I know that he was definitely stereotyped, for having dreads, and he would run every morning. He was a marathon runner, and so my mom, I was a kid, so I didn't understand, but my mom said every morning she was so worried about him because people would just see early in the morning, like at dawn, a Black man with dreads like running, right? And so I think that there are so many issues for Black men with hair as well. And even when Black men like wear their hair out in like big afros, I think that there are definitely a lot of stereotypes there as well. And I would love to in the future sort of expand my work with Black hair and see sort of how Black men fit into the equation.
Oh, so there might be a part two.
I don't know if it's going to be a book or I have no idea, but
I just remember the NFL had a rule where they said it's okay to pull hair. And I thought that was an assault on Black men in the NFL with dreadlocks. I don't know if that rule is still in effect, but that was a rule that it was okay for a while. And I just thought, really?
Wow.
Yeah, because who can't tuck their hair under their helmet? People with dreadlocks or locks. So in the chat room, we have a question about your little sister, Chloe. They want to know, how did she respond to the book? Does she now understand that this book is dedicated to her?
Yeah, she does. Let's see. She loves her hair now. She's now 8 years old, and I showed this book to her in July this past summer. I showed her like the final version, an early copy. And she was so excited to flip through all of the pages. She'd seen bits and pieces before. And so she knew, it was funny, like she knew the exact women she wanted to go to. So she could, see their hairstyles. Like Asha, the woman I was talking about earlier, has these really beautiful twists that she put into little buns. And my sister went straight to her page and was like, I want this hairstyle. And that was really, really beautiful to see her come to embrace her natural hair, and at such a young age, because for myself and for a lot of other Black women, it takes a lot longer, so many more years. And so the fact that at such a young age, my sister has embraced her hair. And it's funny because when I visited her, she passed me my phone and she actually asked me to interview her and ask her what she loved about her natural hair. So it was like she wanted to be part of the book almost, like, okay, now ask me, why do I love my natural hair?
I love it. Okay, we have Bashan from Politics and Prose, where your book is carried, giving us some clarity to the NFL issue. He says the hair is considered part of the uniform in the NFL, so it may be pulled. Okay, so who came up with those rules? Who came up with that your hair is part of your uniform? Really?
Wow.
So your eyelashes as well? I mean, give me a break here.
Yeah, that sounds ridiculous. And that it's interesting too, because I feel like actually with that point and like and dreadlocks, I feel like sort of hair length is used against Black men and Black boys a lot, especially with dreads. Like I know a lot of schools will have like limits to how long your hair can be and stuff like that, especially like, private boys schools. And that's not fair. I don't think that's fair to like Black boys or Black students who have longer dreads. They shouldn't have to cut them. You can learn perfectly fine.
Yeah, and I know some parents may feel so strongly they may not send their child to that school. I mean, this is an epidemic here, and it's interesting that you talk about, all of the different nuances. Did you interview any hairstylists or anyone in the hair care industry for your book?
Ooh, that's a good question. No, actually, no hairstylists. I mean, there are people, I mean, like a lot of Black women just know how to braid, and so they'll do like their sister's hair, their cousin's hair, hair of all the women in their family. Um, but no licensed, I don't think any licensed
Oh, that's
um
interesting because that's like
hairstylist.
a $1 trillion industry, But I think
Yeah.
part of the beauty in it is when you liberate yourself, you're not tied to feeding into the industry. You're not tied to spending so much money. And it's like, if you know just how the basics of how to do your hair naturally, you can go a long time and you can save a lot of money. And did that topic come up about how much money we spend as Black women on our hair?
Yeah, that's an interesting question, actually, because I think a lot of Black women, or what I've heard is that, from some Black women, is that natural hair is expensive, and which is interesting. And I think there's so much emphasis on products and on having defined curls as opposed to like a picked out afro, and like edges and all that stuff. And so I think because there is just such a high standard for Black women and what it means to look like quote unquote presentable, I think that that puts a lot of pressure. But I think that financially it's a drain to spend so much money on relaxers and perms and weaves. A friend of mine last week just spent several $100s getting tracks, and she's gonna have to pay however much it's gonna cost for someone to put in those tracks for her. And so
And you got to pay to get them taken out. Yeah,
yeah, exactly.
I had a weave addiction for a while, which I've recovered from, thankfully.
Yeah.
We have another comment and another question. I'll start with the comment. Fatima says, as a Muslim woman who chooses to cover her hair, I was worried I might feel out of place at this discussion, but I'm so happy that I attended. I resonate so much with what you are saying about the empowerment of women with how we choose to express ourselves, regardless of what societal standards may be. Thank you, St. Clair, for this beautiful book that upholds beauty in all of its shapes and forms. Was that your goal?
Thank you. Yes, yes, definitely. So I'm so happy that you said that. I want this book to empower everybody to live their lives authentically and in a way that brings them joy. And I'm really glad that the empowerment from the book comes across, because I just want everybody to do what makes them feel the most empowered. And that was my goal for my sister. I didn't want her to feel like she had to change her hair in order to be beautiful. And I don't want anybody to think that they have to do anything to be beautiful, right? Like, we're all already beautiful, however we choose to express ourselves. And some of the women in the book, I think you opened to her page earlier, like she has pink hair, and that's really cool, right? So I definitely want our unique beauty to come across.
Yeah, I can't find it. If you have to spend on the fun stuff like color. There is a money conversation going on in the chat here. Let's see. Allison says, I find natural hair to be way less expensive. I do too, Allison. However, the self-care time is extensive but enjoyable. My entire experience and feeling with and about my hair has changed. And then Lorraine says, if spend is a personal choice, then fine. But if it's due to pressure, hell no. I like that. If you want to spend the money and it makes you happy, fine. But if you're feeling pressured to fit in, it's a different story.
Yeah, I agree. There was one woman who I wanted, who we talked about it. She wanted to be in my book, and she had a weave, and she was gonna get rid of her weave and go natural. And she was really excited about it. But then at the last minute, she decided no, that she wasn't going to do it, not because she didn't want to, but because she was worried that there would be repercussions from her government job. And I think that that's, and it's true. I because there are so many stereotypes against Black women with natural hair. And so I definitely agree that we need to work to create a space where every woman can go natural if she wants to, without any sort of negative repercussions.
Yeah, and you know where you work. I remember when I was so stressed out, my hair was falling out, and I made the transition. I knew I was working in a racist environment. And then when I left, I knew I had, it's a feeling. I knew that I could naturally wear my hair, big and loud and proud, and it was okay. And it's a vibe. And it's unfortunate that it affects Black women's livelihood. And it brings us to our next question from Claire. She wants to know, what are one or two things you, St. Clair, would like non-Black women and non-Black people to know about this topic of our hair?
That's a good question. I think that I would like non-Black people to understand, first of all, the history of our hair. I know that's a huge ask because the history of our hair spans so many centuries. But I think that it's important for non-Black people to understand that our hair is grounded in a historical context, right? So often different braids or Bantu knots or locks, that's all cultural. Sometimes, obviously, you want to dye your hair pink, it's part of a trend, but there are a lot of Afrocentric hairstyles that are far more than just a trend. And so I think that I would like non-Black people to understand that about our hair and that we have such a deep connection to it. And then I think that just this is kind of a hard question actually, but I think that I would like non-Black people to know how important it is to create spaces in which Black people can feel comfortable wearing their natural hair. So not going out of your way to comment on a Black person's hair, not saying, oh my gosh, you changed your hair again, right? Not making it sort of the center of the show for some arbitrary reason. I think that that's important. Our hair is beautiful and it can be admired, but it's not like a circus show, which it sometimes feels like.
You walk into a room not to be the center of attention. Sometimes you just got dressed and walked into a room because that's your job and you're supposed to. And all of a sudden everything stops and the conversation is about how you changed your hair.
Yeah.
Stop doing that, white people and allies. I just went ahead and said it, St. Clair. You were a lot more eloquent than I. Stop doing it. Think it. So very nice. Okay, keep it moving. Catherine wants to know, what does it feel like to birth a book? Was it hard to find a publisher on this topic? After all the work that goes into writing a book, and we all know writing a book is like birthing a baby, a baby that's a story. Is it a relief or a worry of how your book will be covered, or is it exhilarating? Is there pressure? She wants to know about being at public events and representing, to a certain degree, Black women everywhere.
Yeah.
It's a full question.
It is, yeah. I need to think about this. I think that, well, let's see. Okay. It feels amazing to birth a book. I've been working on this book for a few years now, pretty much since I graduated college, I started working on this book. And so, to see through it till the end, because there were some times where I didn't know how far I was going to get, and then the pandemic hit, and that was scary. I didn't know what I was going to do because I was going to self-publish it. And it was a long journey getting here. But I'm really, really grateful that we as a community made it, because I think it's definitely a community effort between everyone who contributed. And I'm really, really happy that it gets to be out in the world now and that people get to see it and that it gets to sort of fall into the hands of more people than just my sister, because my original goal was just like a little pamphlet or booklet for my sister, you know, with a few photos. And so to watch the project sort of take on a life of its own has been really cool. And I hope, like I've had a couple people tell me, you know, there was one woman the other day who said she was thinking about going natural again after seeing this book. Like she wanted to give it another shot. And so I love seeing the concrete positive impact that it's having on people. Like that's been really cool because ultimately it's a project of love. And so I hope that's getting out there. And then in terms of being on at public events, I think that, well, first, just sort of coming out of I mean, we're still in a pandemic, but so having these opportunities to connect with people and be in conversation with people and meet amazing people like Markette, like you, I think that's really cool. Because yeah, for so long, I was like craving that human connection, you know, throughout the pandemic. So I think it's just really cool to get that now. And also, I mean, even just now interacting with the questions, I'm really grateful for this entire experience.
I am too. I love that the world has opened us up to, even though I'm in Tacoma Park and you are in Washington, D.C., and the book was shot in New York and D.C. and some places in between, we are able to connect and come together as a community. And Washington, D.C. is a special place. I think it's, you know, when you look at history, like you said, there's not too many greats in modern American history who didn't pass through DC at some point in time to go to college, to start a business, to work, to lobby government for something and spend, even if it were a small amount of time, all of the greats passed through DC. And the fact that this important side of our story is being told, I think it's a start on impacting lives beyond your sisters, because everyone has that story where their hair is big, and I have your sister's hair texture. And so, you know, my hair is big, and because it rained and I didn't have an umbrella, and you're like, oh my God, my hair is big, you know, and what am I going to do? And it shouldn't take 3 decades in my case to embrace it. So what? It rained. Now my hair is big. It was small and now it's big.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have some great. Where can you get the book? Okay, if you're just now joining, you can get the book at Politics and Prose, our DC bookseller here. Dan says it's clearly a labor of love. Frederick wants to know, how did it feel when The Guardian contacted you about the book?
Yeah, that was pretty cool. Someone from The Guardian asked me about 2 pieces. The first was to talk about Black hair at the Met Gala, and that was cool because I got to like look through all of the hairstyles. Because I usually don't keep up with like fashion shows and stuff like that, but I got to sort of look through all the Black hairstyles and think really deeply about them, which I really liked, and see how, you know, as I said in the article, Black hair was the centerpiece of the Met Gala. And I thought that was really cool. Like the different hairstyles that the Black people had and the ways that they honored our ancestors at the event was really beautiful. And then the other article from The Guardian was about cultural appropriation. So that was a little more controversial, or at least my response in terms of, you know, no, I don't think non-Black people should wear Afrocentric hairstyles. But it was really cool to be able to share my thoughts. I was really honored to be contacted.
That's awesome. That's how you know you're striking a chord. And I understand you're a multimedia producer. What's next for you on the content creation side of things? Are you going to follow up with a second book? Where do you want to take this?
I have a lot of dreams. And I know that my work with Black hair isn't done, because even though I started this for my sister, I feel like it's still grounded in my love for her, but it's also just been so expanded. And so I would love to look at Black hair, you know, for Black men and boys as well. I would love to get a more global perspective because this book was, right, everyone was in the US except for my sister who lives in France. And so it is ultimately more of an American experience, even though there are a few immigrants in the book. And so I would love to explore Black hair in different countries and what that looks like. And
you can't find any hair products. What are y'all putting on your hair?
You told me about that in France, right?
Yes. So what we have in common, St. Clair, is I minored in French in undergrad, and I spent almost a year studying in France. And me and two of my Black girlfriends, we had had enough of, the regular hair products, for European hair. So somehow one of my friends found out about a Black hair care store, and it was a secret. And I don't know why. I was so young, I can't remember. I was like 19. And it was at night. We left our dorms. We walked downtown in an alley with no lights, and we knocked on a steel door, almost like a speakeasy. And when you think about it, it's something, if you have a daughter, you don't want her doing in a foreign country. We knocked on the door, and this African lady let us in and closed the door. And it was this tiny little closet store of like Dark and Lovely products and, like hair grease and Black shampoo. It was the weirdest thing. And, we got what we needed and we left, and there was no signs. And it was so long ago, I can't even tell you where I was, what it was called. I couldn't get back there. I can't even tell you what I bought. But the fact that we as Black women in France, that has so many Black people who live in France because of colonization and French speaking nations in Africa and in the Caribbean. It's like, why isn't our product featured in the main grocery stores? So it was eye-opening, and I just remember, okay, if I ever go out of the country again, you gotta pack your tub, your Afro pick and your tub of grease. Because I love grease. I don't know if it went out of style, but I love grease because I don't have a perm, so I like to moisturize.
Yeah.
Okay. I know I've talked too long about that, but I want to congratulate you on your book, My Beautiful Black Hair, and your beautiful cover girl and your little sister. I think you're changing the lives of Black women here and all over the world who will encounter this book. So before we let you go, we're almost at an hour. Tell us where we can follow you on social media, where we can sign up to stay in touch and learn more about you and this beautiful book.
Yeah, thank you so much. So the link for the book, Politics and Prose, added it to the chat. And then on social media, I am at St Clair Detrick-Jules. So actually, maybe I'll type it in the chat since it's here.
Yes, please do.
That's my Instagram. And then I'm also at My Beautiful Black Hair on Instagram. Okay. This is why virtual is so nice. There we go. And then I also have websites, which are stclairdetrickjules.com, spelled the same way, and mybeautifulblackhair.com, and people can find out more about me and my future projects once I am more decisive about those, and can also contact me because I love meeting new people.
I love it. I love it. This is a great book. I think the holidays are coming up. I think people should buy it and take it to Thanksgiving. And talk to their aunts who make them straighten their hair. I have some of those where they're like, I don't get it, Take the book as a Thanksgiving conversation piece, send it to your girlfriends, your cousins, your sisters, your brothers as Christmas gifts, and then birthdays and Mother's Day. There's so many occasions to where I think this is just a great gift for people because it uplifts and inspires.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I really appreciate all of that. That's so kind of you.
This is fun. Politics and Prose. They put all of the links in there, and Bashan is back to help close us out.
All right. Can you get my audio on? Okay. Well, I do have one last question. This is for both of you. And this is something we ask featured guests here. So no particular order, could both of you tell us if you're currently reading anything, and if you are able to, share what that is with the audience?
Do you want to go first, Markette?
I'll say, in honor of you, it's your choice. You can go first or last. It's up to you. You can close the show, right?
Okay, yeah, you can go first.
I'll say I'm working on a third book. I do kids books. That's my thing, and it's a ninja story. So I'm rereading it and reading it and rereading it and making sure, that I'm hoping people get the sentiment. So I'm reading a manuscript, I should say, and that's all I can say about it right now.
That's cool. That's exciting. And I feel like kids books are so important, because I was actually just thinking recently about how big of a role kids books played in my life when I was a kid. And there are actually so many deep lessons in there. Like, I was at my nephew's house the other day, and I saw his little book that was called, I think it was called The Word Collector. And it was just this really beautiful little kids book about this little boy who loves collecting words. And then at the end of the book, he like spreads them all out, and he feels super happy to share his words with everybody. So I thought that was cute. And then, but what I'm reading, not with kids though, is is I just finished The Alchemist, which I thought was really good. I know it's a classic, but I hadn't read it yet. And I love the overarching idea there of following your dreams and achieving your, as the author says, your personal legend, right? Like whatever the universe wants you to do. So whatever your dream is, like, to go for it. And that's really the only thing that we have a duty to do in this lifetime. And I feel like that plays into the role, even thinking about Black hair, and how we have, I think, the responsibility to love ourselves regardless of what the world says.
I love that. I just posted on my social media something of Jeannie Mai. Jeannie Mai, she's very inspirational. And she said, people are posting all these love stories like, will I find my one true love in life? And she says, your one true love is you. You're the only person you're going to start and end this life with. You cannot escape it. You got to love yourself. There's nowhere else to go. You are with you. And then once you love yourself, then you can look at others and see how they can compliment you. And if I can, I love this video. It's in my reels on my business Instagram. So I just want to post Glowstream TV there. Check it out. Watch this Jeannie Mai video. Her hair is straight, but she has a really good message. And then you'll buy the book and say, I'm going to start loving myself first by supporting this book.
Well, that was excellent. Thank you both for your wonderful answers. Of course, thank all of you out there who joined us for another PNP Live. And on behalf of Politics and Prose, I'd like to say to everyone, stay well and stay well read.
Thank you.